Love in the Fast Lane. Chapter 13. Phoenix arrived with its typical pre-dawn chaos. Trey sat in the hauler at 6 a.m., reviewing setup notes while the crew unloaded equipment in the gray half-light. The desert air was already warm, promising another brutal day of triple-digit temperatures that would turn the track into a furnace by afternoon. His phone buzzed. Sam, right on schedule. "How's the desert?" she asked, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Hot. Dry. Full of photographers asking if I'm dating anyone. He leaned back in his chair, watching Gary direct the tire mounting operation through the window. "How's your perfectly average hotel?" "Perfectly average. The ice machine is broken, and the continental breakfast consists of stale bagels and coffee that tastes like it was filtered through a gym sock." "It's wonderful." Trey laughed despite himself. "You could still upgrade." "Nope. I'm committed to the full civilian experience. I even bought a Phoenix Racing t-shirt from the gift shop. It's hideous, and I love it." They talked for 20 minutes about tire compounds and track surface preparation. Technical shop talk that felt like meditation after months of media obligations and sponsor meetings. When Sam finally said she needed to find coffee that didn't taste like athletic equipment, Trey felt centered in a way he hadn't since Texas. Practice went smoothly. The car was fast out of the box, handling the desert heat better than they'd hoped. The new brake duct configuration was working, keeping the tire temperatures in the optimal window despite the punishing conditions. "Looking good for tonight," Jack said as they reviewed the data sheets. "Car's got speed, just need to execute." Saturday evening, the lights came up around the track, transforming Phoenix Raceway into something magical. The desert mountains provided a dramatic backdrop, their jagged silhouettes black against the star-filled sky. The 40,000 fans in the grandstands created a bowl of noise and energy that seemed to focus down onto the mile-long oval. Trey went through his pre-race routine with mechanical precision. Fire suit. Hans device. Helmet. The familiar weight of safety equipment that had become a second skin over 15 years of racing. Radio check. Mike's voice crackled through the headset. Loud and clear. "Looks good from here. Track temps holding at 95 degrees. Should stay consistent once the sun goes down completely." Trey climbed through the window and settled into the seat that had been molded to his exact body measurements. The steering wheel felt perfect in his hands, every button, and switch exactly where muscle memory expected it to be. Focus, he told himself. Just another race. But as the pace car led them around for the final pace laps, he found his mind drifting to a perfectly average sports bar somewhere in the city, where Sam was sitting with a beer and terrible nachos, watching him on a television mounted above a dartboard. She was there, not in the VIP suite or the pit box, but there, in the same time zone, breathing the same desert air. It was enough. The green flag dropped. Phoenix was a track where passing was difficult. Once the field spread out, track position mattered more than raw speed. But Trey had qualified third, and the two cars ahead of him were driven by veterans who knew how to protect their positions. It was going to be a long night. For the first 100 laps, the race settled into a rhythm. Trey maintained third, looking for opportunities that didn't come. The leader, Martinez, was driving a perfect line, leaving no room for aggressive moves. Second place, Wilson, was doing the same thing, running just fast enough to stay ahead, not fast enough to create mistakes. "Save the tires," Jack advised over the radio. "We'll need them later." The first caution flew on lap 120 when a rookie spun in turn 2. The field bunched up, creating the first real opportunity for position changes. Trey's crew performed flawlessly, 4 tires and fuel in 11.8 seconds, but so did everyone else. He restarted third. On lap 200, everything changed. Wilson's engine let go in a spectacular cloud of smoke and flames, bringing out the yellow flag and eliminating one of Trey's primary obstacles. More importantly, Martinez was forced to pit under caution with a loose wheel, cycling him back to 15th place. Suddenly, Trey was leading. "Take care of the tires," Jack counseled. "We've got the field covered on fuel. Just bring it home." But leading at Phoenix was like painting a target on your bumper. The second-place car, driven by a hungry young driver named Phillips, began stalking him immediately. Phillips was faster in the corners, but Trey had better straightaway speed. It created a delicate balance. Trey couldn't run so hard that he overheated his tires, but he couldn't run so conservatively that Phillips found an opening. Lap after lap, they ran nose to tail. Phillips would pull alongside in the turns. Trey would edge ahead on the straights. The gap never exceeded half a car length in either direction. 40 to go, Mike announced. Phillips is on fresher tires. He's going to try something. On lap 275, Phillips made his move. He dove to the inside in turn 1, pulling alongside Trey's door. For 3 corners, they ran side by side at 180 miles per hour, neither giving an inch. The crowd was on its feet, sensing the decisive moment. In turn 3, Phillips got a better run. His nose pulled ahead. Trey could have lifted, could have tucked in behind, and waited for another opportunity. Instead, he did what Sam had taught him. He trusted the physics. He drove deeper into turn 4 than any sane person would attempt, using every inch of track from the apron to the wall. His car was loose, the back end sliding, tires smoking. But the momentum carried him past Phillips on the inside, and when they crossed the start-finish line, Trey was leading by inches. "Hell yes," Jack shouted over the radio. "That's how you drive it." The final 35 laps were a blur of concentration and tire management. Phillips stayed close, but he'd used up his best opportunity. When the checkered flag fell, Trey was 3 car lengths ahead. Victory Lane at Phoenix was smaller than Texas, more intimate. The crowd noise seemed more personal, less overwhelming. Trey climbed from his car feeling exhausted but satisfied. This hadn't been a lucky win or a gift from strategy. This had been earned through driving skill and car preparation. The interviews were routine, the questions predictable. No one asked about his personal life. The story was the racing, the move in turn 4, the points championship implications. When the obligations were finally finished, Trey changed into civilian clothes, jeans and a plain t-shirt, and slipped out of the track through a side gate. He'd memorized the address Sam had texted him earlier in the day. Knockout Sports Bar was exactly what he'd expected. Dim lighting, mismatched furniture, the lingering smell of fried food and spilled beer. A dozen television screens showed various sporting events, including replays of his victory. The crowd was a mix of race fans and locals who probably couldn't identify him without his fire suit. He found Sam in a corner booth, still wearing her hideous Phoenix Racing t-shirt, a mostly empty beer in front of her. She was talking animatedly with a middle-aged woman at the neighboring table, gesturing with her hands in the universal language of someone explaining carburetor theory. "So the Venturi effect creates a pressure differential that draws fuel into the airstream," Sam was saying. "It's basic fluid dynamics, just applied to internal combustion." The woman nodded politely, clearly lost but too nice to say so. Trey slid into the booth across from Sam. "Spreading automotive enlightenment? Someone has to." Sam grinned at him, her face flushed with excitement and beer. That was a hell of a drive. That move in 4? Completely insane. Statistically inadvisable, but mechanically sound. You used the whole track, maximized the available grip. She leaned forward, her eyes bright. "Did it feel as crazy as it looked?" "Terrifying," Trey admitted. "But I kept hearing your voice from those phone calls, about trusting the suspension geometry. The car did exactly what it was supposed to do. You just had to let it work." The bartender appeared, recognizing Trey, despite his attempt at anonymity. "You're him, the guy who just won." "That's him," Sam said proudly, and Trey felt something warm settle in his chest. "Buy this man a beer. He's had a long day." They stayed until closing time, talking about the race, about Phoenix, about everything except the media circus that was probably already analyzing their relationship. Sam told him about her flight delay and the rental car with a broken air conditioner. Trey told her about the team dinner where Gary had threatened to make him watch training videos if he didn't start eating more vegetables. Normal conversation between two people who happened to care about each other. When the bartender called last call, they walked to the parking lot together. Sam's rental car was a tiny economy model that looked like it would struggle to reach highway speed. "This thing gonna make it to the airport tomorrow?" Trey asked, running his hand along the plastic bumper. "It'll make it. Might not be pretty, but it'll make it." Sam leaned against the driver's door, looking up at him in the orange glow of the parking lot lights. This was perfect. Even the terrible nachos? Especially the terrible nachos. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for letting me." He stepped closer, close enough to smell her shampoo over the desert air. "Can I call you tonight? After I get back to the hotel?" "You better. I want to hear all the details about that last restart, the one they didn't show on TV." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, tasting of beer and possibility. When they broke apart, she smiled. "Drive safe, champion." "You too." He watched her drive away in her ridiculous economy car, taillights disappearing into the Phoenix night. Then he climbed into his rental, a luxury sedan that felt unnecessarily enormous after seeing Sam's choice, and headed back to the team hotel. His phone rang as he pulled into the parking lot. "Chelsea, where the hell have you been?" she demanded. "I've been calling for 2 hours. Legal needs to talk to you about the Hendrick contract. And can it wait until tomorrow?" "Trey, this is important." "Chelsea." He pulled into a parking space and shut off the engine. "I just won a race. I spent the evening celebrating with someone who understands what that actually means." For the first time in years, I feel like myself. So please, give me 12 hours. Silence on the line. Then, more quietly, how is she? She's perfect. She ordered nachos that looked like they were assembled by someone who'd only heard nachos described secondhand, and she was happier than I've seen her since Texas. And you? Trey looked up at the hotel. 47 floors of glass and steel. Luxury accommodations that would isolate him from the real world, from the connection he'd just experienced. I'm good, Chels. Really good. Okay, but tomorrow we need to talk. About strategy. About how to handle this going forward. Tomorrow, Trey agreed. But tonight, I'm just going to call my girlfriend and tell her about the restart she didn't see on TV. The word felt natural in his mouth. Girlfriend. Not the mystery woman or the garage groupie that the media had created. Just Sam, who understood suspension geometry and ordered terrible nachos and made him feel like winning meant something again. He hung up and headed to the elevator, already reaching for his phone to make the call he'd been looking forward to all day. In 12 hours, he'd be back in the circus. But for now, he was just Trey, calling Sam to talk about racing and terrible bar food and the way the desert looked under a sky full of stars. It was enough. Times. The Charlotte Motor Speedway R&D Center was a fortress of glass and clinical white steel, a sharp contrast to the grease-stained, chaotic warmth of a race shop. It was neutral ground, Switzerland, for the horsepower wars. Sam sat in the lobby, her hands resting on her knees. She wasn't wearing the ill-fitting fire suit from Texas, nor the silk blouse from the suite. She wore a tailored blazer over a simple t-shirt and dark jeans, her feet clad in clean, low-top Chuck Taylors. She looked like herself. 2 months had passed since Phoenix. 2 months of Trey driving with a terrifying consistency, finishing 4th, 6th, 5th, 3rd. He hadn't won again, but he was climbing the leaderboard with a methodical precision that was terrifying the rest of the field. He was driving the way she had told him to, analytically. 2 months of late-night drives between Raleigh and Charlotte. 2 months of hiding in tinted SUVs and avoiding main entrances. Ms. Kirby? A man in a sharp gray suit approached, holding a thick folder. This was Bill Roberts, the director of competition technology at the headquarters of Stock Car Racing. That's me, Sam stood. Thank you for coming down. The technical review board was impressed with the analysis you sent over regarding the next-gen chassis load distribution. Your thoughts on the rear-independent suspension geometry were illuminating. They were mathematically accurate, Sam said, falling into the comfort of facts. The current dampener specs are inducing a harmonic vibration at 170 miles per hour. Robert smiled. It was a shark smile, sharp and appreciative. Which is why we want you. We need people who look at the car and see a physics problem, not a religion. The offer stands. Senior Systems Engineer for the R&D Center. You'd be working on safety compliance and future chassis development. No team affiliation. Neutral, Switzerland. Sam took the folder. It was heavy. It represented a salary double what she made in Raleigh, a chance to work on the most advanced automotive technology in the country, and, most dangerously, a life in Charlotte. I need the weekend to verify the variables, Sam said. Take it. But Samantha? Roberts lowered her voice slightly. We know who you're seeing. It's a small town. As long as you're in R&D and not on a pit box, it's not a conflict of interest. But it will be a topic of conversation. I'm getting used to being a topic of conversation, Sam said wryly. She walked out into the humid North Carolina afternoon. Her phone buzzed. Trey, heading to the lake house. Crew chief barely yelled at me today. It's a good day. Sam looked at the message, then at her Audi parked in the visitor lot. Stella was dusty from the highway miles. The rear tires were wearing unevenly from all the commuting. She was tired of the distance. She was tired of the bifurcation of herself. Sam the Raleigh analyst, and Sam the ghost of Charlotte. She got in the car, mounted her phone, and ignored the GPS directions back to Raleigh. She turned west, toward the lake. The sun was setting over Lake Norman when she pulled into Trey's driveway. The garage door was open, revealing the only part of the property that felt like a home. Trey was there, under the lift, working on a vintage Chevelle. He was covered in grease, wearing a stained t-shirt, looking nothing like the polished athlete on the Wheaties box. He slid out from under the chassis as Stella's distinctive exhaust note rumbled into the driveway. He wiped his hands on a rag, his face lighting up with that unguarded, boyish look that always dismantled her defenses. You're supposed to be in Raleigh, he said as she got out. Checking database migrations, or something equally thrilling. I called in sick. Well, personal day. Sam leaned against her car door. I had a meeting. Trey stopped wiping his hands. The easy looseness vanished from his posture, replaced by the intensity he usually saved for qualifying laps. A meeting? With who? Bill Roberts, head of R&D at headquarters. Trey let out a low whistle. The Death Star. What did they want? They offered me a job, senior systems engineer. She threw the heavy folder onto the workbench next to a disassembled carburetor, developing the next generation of chassis safety. Trey looked at the folder, then at her. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He stood very still, respecting the magnitude of the variable introduced into the equation. That would mean moving here, he said quietly. It would. It would mean being in the blast radius full time. It would. Trey tossed the rag onto the bench and walked over to her, stopping just outside touching distance. He respected her space, the physical manifestation of the privacy rule they'd lived by for 8 weeks. Sam, I want you here. You know that. I wake up every morning wishing you were the one making the coffee, but I promised I wouldn't force this. I promised I wouldn't try to fix your life, or drag you into the circus. You're not dragging me, Sam said. I drove here. I took the meeting. Did you take it because you want the job, or because you're tired of driving 4 hours to see me? Both, she admitted. The job is incredible, Trey. It's pure engineering, no corporate politics, just making cars safer and faster. But she looked down at her Chuck Taylors, scuffing the epoxy floor. I'm terrified. Of the media, of losing myself, of becoming Trey Stockton's girlfriend, who happens to have a job at headquarters. I've seen the forums. Even after 2 months of silence, they still call me the mystery brunette. If I move here, if we do this for real, the mystery is over. The floodgates open. Trey reached out then, taking her hand. His palm was rough, calloused, and warm. Then we control the floodgates. We control the narrative. How? You can't stop TMZ. No. But I can stop the speculation. I can stop the groupie talk. He squeezed her hand. I've been thinking about this. The reason the narrative is toxic is because we're hiding. Hiding implies shame. It implies a secret. We're protecting privacy, not hiding. To them, it's the same thing. Trey stepped closer, invading her space in the way she realized she desperately needed. Sam, move here. Take the job. Be the brilliant engineer you are. And let me handle the rest. Let me introduce you properly, not as a conquest, not as a blurry photo in a tabloid, but as who you actually are. A press conference? She grimaced. That sounds like a root canal. A statement. On my terms. My stream, no reporters shouting questions. Just the truth. He lifted her hand, inspecting the grease smudge he'd transferred to her skin. We define the line. We tell them, this is Sam. She builds race cars. She's smarter than me. She has a job that prohibits her from working on my team, so don't ask. She is off limits. Sam looked at him. She saw the exhaustion of the last 2 months, the split focus, the constant checking of blind spots. She saw the man who had spent weeks earning her trust, never pushing, never buying, just waiting. She realized that what she wanted was a world where he was in it every day, come hell or high water. Okay, she whispered. Trey froze. Okay to the job? Okay to the job. Okay to the move. She took a breath, steadying her heart rate. And okay to the statement. But I have conditions. Name them. I don't speak. I sit there. I look professional. But you do the talking. I am not a prop, but I am also not a public speaker. Done. And you make sure they know I'm an engineer. If one person calls me a model or an influencer, I'm putting sugar in your gas tank. Trey grinned, the tension breaking. I would expect nothing less. I'll schedule it for Tuesday. That gives you 3 days to find an apartment where I am absolutely not going to pay the rent. I can pay my own rent, Stockton. I've seen the salary offer. I know you can. He pulled her in then, hugging her hard, pressing her face into the shoulder of his greasy t-shirt. She smelled motor oil and the distinct scent of home. We're going to win this, Sam. We're going to find the line. Tuesday arrived with the heavy, humid pressure typical of a Charlotte summer. Trey's home office was set up like a command center. Chelsea, who had flown in from Atlanta the moment Trey told her the plan, was zip-tying cables and adjusting lighting rings. 2 high-definition cameras were mounted on tripods. A laptop sat open, running a diagnostic on a dedicated streaming server. It felt less like a press conference and more like a missile launch. Sam sat in a leather armchair just out of the frame of the main camera. She was dressed for battle. A sharp navy blazer, a white button-down, dark jeans. Her hair was pulled back in her severe, working French twist. She held a mug of coffee with both hands to stop them from trembling. "Audio check," Chelsea said, tapping a microphone on the desk. "Trey, say something." Trey sat at the heavy oak desk. He was wearing a simple black polo shirt with the small Stockton Racing logo on the chest. No sponsor hats. No sunglasses. He looked serious. Older than his 32 years. Check 1, 2. Aerodynamics are for people who can't build engines. Chelsea rolled her eyes. Enzo Ferrari. Nice. Levels are good. She turned to Sam. "You okay over there, Hurricane?" "I'm vibrating," Sam admitted. "My heart rate is 110. Technically, I'm in zone 2 cardio. Sitting in a chair. Breathe," Trey said, swiveling his chair to face her. "You don't have to do anything. You just have to exist. That's the hard part. Existing while thousands of people judge the existence." "They aren't judging you," Trey said firmly. "They're listening to me. And if they judge you, they're wrong. And they can go to hell. PR crisis incoming," Chelsea muttered, though she was smiling. "Okay, we go live in 2 minutes. This goes out to the main social channels and the press pool feed. No Q&A. Just the statement. Trey, keep it under 5 minutes. The internet has the attention span of a goldfish." Trey nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, then put it back. "You wrote something?" Sam asked. "I did, but I think I know what I need to say." 1 minute, Chelsea warned. "Sam, you good?" "You're in the safe zone. Camera can't see you unless you lean forward about 2 feet. I'm staying right here. Glued to the leather. 30 seconds. Trey, eyes up. Shoulders back. Stop looking like you're about to punch someone. I might punch someone. Save it for the track. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3. Chelsea pointed a finger. A red tally light on the main camera blinked on. Trey stared into the lens. He didn't put on the media face, that toothy, vacant smile Sam hated. He leaned forward, clasping his hands on the desk. He looked intense, grounded, and completely authentic. "Good afternoon," Trey began. His voice was deep, steady. "I don't usually do this. Usually, when I have something to say, I let the car do the talking on Sunday. But lately, the conversation has drifted away from racing and into places it doesn't belong." Sam watched the monitor on the side table. The viewer count was skyrocketing. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. The comments were a blur of speed, indistinguishable. For the past 2 months, there has been a lot of speculation about my private life, about who I spend my time with, and what that means for my career. I've stayed quiet because I believe private lives should stay private. But that silence has allowed a narrative to build that is false, disrespectful, and frankly, insulting to the person involved. He paused, shifting slightly. His eyes flicked to Sam for a nanosecond, a grounding touch, before returning to the lens. The woman you've seen in the photos, the mystery brunette as the tabloids like to call her, has a name. Her name is Samantha Kirby. And she is not a quote garage groupie. She is not a passenger. She is not a prop for my victory lane celebrations. Sam gripped her coffee mug tighter. Samantha is a mechanical engineer, Trey continued, his voice gaining an edge of steel. She understands suspension geometry better than most people in this industry. She is a competitive SCCA driver who builds, wrenches, and tunes her own car. When I won in Texas, I didn't kiss her because she looked good in the shot. I kissed her because she was the one who told me my rotation point in turn 3 was wrong, and she was right. Chelsea stood silently in the corner, her arms crossed, nodding slowly. "We live in a world that likes to put people in boxes," Trey said. "Especially women in motorsports. You're either a driver or you're a decoration. I am here to tell you that Sam is neither. She is my partner. She is my equal." He took a breath. This was the turn. The pivot from defense to offense. Sam has recently accepted a position as a senior engineer with the association's Research and Development Center. She will be working to make the sport safer for every driver on the grid. She earned that job on her own merit, with her own credentials. Because of that role, and because of the integrity she brings to her work, she will not be on my pit box. She won't be wearing Stockton racing gear. She has her own career, her own life, and her own name. Trey leaned closer to the camera, the intensity in his eyes burning through the digital feed. So here is the request. I take that back. It's not a request, it is a requirement. Respect that. Respect her credentials. If you want to talk about her work. Talk about her engineering. But if I see one more article reducing her to an accessory, or questioning her place in this world, you won't be dealing with my publicist. You'll be dealing with me. The silence in the room was absolute. The hum of the computer fans seemed deafening. We are sharing this now, because we are done hiding. We are living our lives. I will be driving the 41 car, and she will be engineering the future of the sport. We aren't asking for permission. We're just letting you know how it is. Thank you. Trey held the stare for 3 seconds. And cut, Chelsea said, hitting a key on the laptop. The red light died. Trey slumped back in his chair, exhaling a breath that seemed to last for minutes. He ran his hands over his face, scrubbing away the intensity. How was that? He mumbled through his hands. That, Chelsea said, picking up her phone, which was already lighting up with notifications, was the most aggressive back-off I've ever seen that didn't involve a restraining order. Trending immediately. Twitter is confused, but mostly respectful. The phrase, mechanical engineer, is polling well. Trey spun his chair around to face Sam. She hadn't moved. The coffee mug was still clutched in her hands. She stared at him, processing the weight of what he'd just done. He hadn't just claimed her, he'd validated her. He had taken the thing she was most proud of, her mind, her skill, and used his platform to force the world to see it. Sam? Trey asked, his voice gentle again. Too much? She set the mug down on the side table with a clink. She stood up, smoothing the front of her blazer. You called me a competitive driver, she said. You are. I race in parking lots, Trey. You race at Daytona. A race is a race. You attack the apex. You manage the friction circle. Same physics, smaller cone. He stood up, walking toward her. Did I get the job title right? Senior engineer. Yes. You got it right. She looked up at him. The fear she'd felt in the driveway, the fear of being swallowed whole by his fame, was retreating. He hadn't asked her to shrink, to fit his world. He had expanded the world to make room for her. You told them I analyze your telemetry, she accused, though her lips were twitching. I told the truth. You do, and you're annoying about it. I'm precise about it. Exactly. He stopped a foot away. So, can we go get dinner now? Like normal people? Or do you want to check the view counts? I never want to see the view counts, Sam said. But dinner. Dinner sounds good. Somewhere with terrible nachos? Somewhere where nobody knows who we are. That might be harder now, Trey admitted. But if anyone interrupts us, I'll just tell them you're conducting a safety audit of the restaurant's structural integrity. Sam laughed, the sound breaking the last of the tension in the room. I can work with that. Chelsea looked up from her laptop. Just so you two know, the R&D Center just tweeted a welcome message to Engineer Kirby. They're leaning into it. It's a good look for them. Diversity in STEM and all that. See? Trey offered his hand. Controlled narrative. Sam took his hand. It felt solid. It felt like a partnership. Okay, Stockton, she said, squeezing his fingers. You drove the PR lap. Now let's see if you can handle the commute. They didn't go out to dinner. The reality of the adrenaline crash hit them both 10 minutes later. Instead, they ordered pizza and sat on the floor of Trey's living room, surrounded by boxes of parts for the Chevelle that Sam had insisted on inspecting. The TV was on, muted, showing a sports highlight reel. Sam saw a clip of the press conference, Trey's serious face filling the screen, the headline underneath reading Stockton defends partner's career. Not mystery girl, not groupie, partner. Sam picked up a pepperoni slice and pointed it at the TV. You know, you looked very serious. Very senatorial. I was trying not to throw up, Trey admitted, leaning back against the sofa. I've done 300 interviews, and that was the only one that mattered. It mattered, Sam agreed softly. She nudged his knee with hers. So, Martinsville next week. Yeah, Martinsville. I've been looking at the tire fall-off data from last year, she said casually. And I think the 41 team has been running the right rear pressures too high for the concrete surface. Trey groaned, dropping his head back against the cushions. I just professed my respect for your intellect to the entire world, and you're going to use it to critique my tire pressures? Someone has to keep you fast, old man. I'm 38. Ancient in racing years. She smiled, a genuine, relaxed smile that reached her pale green eyes. But you're consistent. I'll give you that.